Actually. Hello everybody and welcome to this month's Google Hangout here at Business Training Made Simple. Today we're going to be looking at how to plan and manage a creative social media campaign end to end. And we're very excited to be joining you here on Beanbags today in our brand new office here in N1 London. Today I'm joined by Michelle Carville, our Marketing Director and Social Media Trainer here at Business Training Made Simple and Made Simple. So we'll just give it a few minutes to wait for everyone to come in to you, and then we'll transfer over to the slides and get going. Okay. So just a reminder that you can post any questions you have throughout via the questions and answers app here on the Hangout, or you can indeed tweet us at @GetTrainedUK. So we'll be answering questions at the end, and this Hangout will be going on for about 30 minutes to 40 minutes. Okay, Michelle, should we get going?
Let's get going. So hi, welcome to everybody for joining us to hang out around planning and managing a creative social media campaign. So what are we going to cover during this session? Well, we're going to look at why it's important to go beyond your usual posting habits, because if you are running social channels, and from a day-to-day, you'll be doing your usual community management, sharing content and news and advice that is hopefully compelling and informative and educational to your audiences. And just like with all of us, you know, we can get to expect certain things from certain news channels, certain news feeds, and so, you know, predictability is a good thing in many ways, but it's also good to kind of drive engagement, and that's how a creative social media campaign can help you actually drive engagement with that audience over and above what you normally do day to day with your social community management. It is also a really useful way to overcome the challenges of actually getting your audiences engaged, because whilst we might have a number of followers on Twitter and a number of fans over on our Facebook pages and people actively engaging with our pins or following us on Instagram, that's great, and those audiences, it's wonderful to be able to broadcast to those audiences. But what we really want to do is drive engagement and get those audiences talking back to us and engaging in conversations. And it's a real sign of commitment when somebody, you know, engages with you and has that element of a conversation, and more so if they can actually share something of their lives with you, you know, what's going on. So if you ask them to do something, very often you have these great ideas about, oh, let's get some stories from our customers, let's get some ideas from our audiences out there. And you might post something really incredible and you think, oh, we've asked a question, but we didn't actually get much response. And very often that's because we're not making it easy for the users to actually help to generate content for us. So we're going to look at, you know, some things to think about in that area. Competitions, of course, can be a really useful way to drive engagement when we incentivize our audiences to want to engage with us. But of course, when we're running competitions, we want to make sure that we've got T's and C's clearly in place, and just some of the other things to consider. So we're going to touch on that during this webinar. And the other element is, you know, not doing things in isolation. The importance of end-to-end communications as part of your campaign. So we're going to talk through a case study about something that here we did at Made Simple, where we really got some good audience engagement, but there was real purpose to why we were doing that. It was thought through. We did our planning, we did our analysis, we then implemented based on, you know, the whole plan, listen, analyze before you engage. We planned out the campaign, and it wasn't just a social campaign. We complemented that campaign across other media that we were doing. So this is another way to think about the end-to-end side, or indeed an integrated approach to using your social media campaigns. And last but by no means least, the tracking and the metrics. You've got to nail what it is that how you're going to track a campaign at the beginning of the campaign, with all of our planning and our listening and our analyzing. So those tracking and metrics elements. You've really got to know what they are so that you can be following what you actually achieve, and how did this campaign go, and what was the reach, and where did we get to, and how many people engaged, so that you can learn from that and continuously have a more intelligent approach to your social media marketing. So those are some of the things we're going to cover as we go through. So let's talk about the importance of going beyond our usual posting habits a little bit more. So if indeed we are just sharing the same content all the time, wonderful image there of this baby yawning, you know, whilst that content can be useful and purposeful and educational, it can also, some people can kind of tune out, just like we do with adverts that we see a lot. You know, we've seen it once, we understand the gist of it, we tune out. And so for brands and for organizations to continuously come up with really interesting, compelling content is quite a challenge. And so running some form of creative campaign gives you and your brand or your business an exciting opportunity to create a different level of engagement with your audience. And often, you know, depending on what that campaign is, it can give you some insights to potentially get to know your audience a little better. So, for example, there have been a number of campaigns where people are asked to share things with friends, or choose between you know, one set of shoes or another set of shoes, or choose between a favorite place to go in the world, you know, and all of these things give you an insight into who they are. Sometimes we get more personal than that, and we say, you know, send us your photographs of you with our product, you know, and therefore you're now getting into their worlds and how things are operating with them. So it gives you a chance to switch off from doing the same old thing, also to give your brand a different kind of level of excitement, you know, for people to engage with, and a chance to actually get some insights out of your customer and get to know them a little bit better. So if we go a little bit further into how creative social media campaigns can help you engage with your audience, well, if we think about it, these are a perfect opportunity to get people involved. And of course, you're getting them involved by getting them to do something related to your brand. The case study that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes is a great example of getting closer to our audience by getting them involved with something that was really important to the Made Simple group. And we'll cover that in just a moment to kind of focus on that salient point. It also helps to bring your brand to the forefront of your customer's mind, and it gives them something to talk about, you know, with their friends, whether they're talking about it digitally, you know, virtually, sharing things on social networks with their friends, or indeed talking with it offline. You know, if you create a great talking piece, people will often say, wow, did you see this? Did you see this offer? Or did you see this competition? Or did you see this great campaign that XYZ were running? It was really interesting. What you had to do was this. And so it gives your audience something to really keep you at the forefront of their mind, and indeed gives you an opportunity to create a little bit of advocacy, to get people talking, a little bit of buzz around the business, the brand, or your product or service. Of course, it's a great reason for people to engage with you. Often we share content out and we ask questions through blogs, through our posts on social channels. But, you know, people are really keen to just tune into these channels to tune in, you know, like a radio station will tune in. I don't necessarily want to talk back. So unless we give people a reason or an incentive to actually engage with us in a creative way, you know, or a fun way, or an interactive way, then they usually won't. So we've got to be thinking about the reason. So running a social creative campaign gives you that reason. And of course, you can be running that social creative campaign. You could be running a creative campaign anywhere. It might be something that is being driven by TV or radio, you know, or indeed direct marketing or posters or a direct mail campaign. It could be any kind of marketing activity that you've chosen to do. But what you're actually going to do is actually plug in the social media channels so that you can keep that conversation going and get that conversation, keep that conversation alive on platforms where they're on anyway. You know, they're on their Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on these channels. So, you know, you see a lot of Instagram competitions, or a lot of competitions where people are saying, share your Instagram with us, hashtag us at such and such, and, you know, you'll be in our prize draw. Well, they're doing that because they know people are on Instagram anyway. It's unlikely that that audience member is going to think, oh, I better get onto Instagram just to participate in this competition. It's the fact that they're there. So it gives you an opportunity to communicate with an audience on the platforms where they prefer to be communicated with. Let's take a quick look at this Ikea Facebook case study. So this was, you know, quite a typical scenario, promoting the opening of a new store. And I mean, this is a new store in Sweden, but this could be a new cafe, it could be a new bookstore, a new clothes store, it could be anything, a new bar, it could be anything, a new product that you're launching. And what these guys did was they created a very simple campaign based on one of Facebook's most crucial and often feared features, photo tagging. So very simply, the agency that was involved created a profile for the manager of the new store, Gordon Gustafsson, and over a few weeks, they proceeded to post 12 images of catalogue-worthy showrooms. So these were showrooms as to, you know, this is what's going. And what Facebook fans were invited to do was they were able to tag furniture items in those showrooms, beautiful showrooms, with their names on them to win them. And in doing so, of course, who wouldn't want to win free furniture out of these wonderful showrooms? So they created huge ripples across their social networks. The pictures spread to thousands and thousands of profiles via news feeds and links. And there was a lot of general noise about this, that the media picked up on it. What an interesting way to launch a new store. You know, so it went beyond social, but of course it created a huge talking point on social. There's the YouTube video there about, you know, the case study, and indeed here's one of the snippets from the case showing exactly how the Facebook app was working, that people could highlight the particular piece of furniture, tag it with their name, as you can see there, and then all the winners. And of course, then when they announced all the winners, the people were delighted with what they'd won, so they were sharing it again on Facebook. And again, it just continued this wonderful awareness about this new store, and quite an innovative and creative way to think about how you would launch a new product or service. So rather than just going through all the traditional elements that you would have considered in opening that new store, they thought, how can we harness audiences on social networks? What could we do to engage them with this new store, show them the 12 showrooms that are going to be on view in this store with products and services, giving people something to incentivize them to actually create and share. And those are all the elements, those are the facets that you need to be thinking about in a creative campaign right at the very beginning. How do we plug our social activity into this? Understanding the way people behave on social, understanding and researching, you know, which social creative campaigns have created noise, and learning from those areas and borrowing those ideas and thinking, well, okay, I'm not Ikea and I don't have a load of product furniture to give away, but I might have some free coffee tokens, or I might have some free drinks that I can give away. So there's always ways that you can be thinking creatively about your product and service, in the same way as some of these hugely viral competition and creative campaigns have happened on the social networks, and bringing it back to your business and to your product so that you can be thinking creatively about how to use it. Because one of the things we all want to do is we want to engage audiences online. You know, we want, the closer we can get to our audiences, the more likely they are to know us, like us, and trust us, and then ultimately do business with us. And a true measure of a lot of social metrics is not necessarily about how many fans you have or how many followers you have, but it's about what level of engagement do I have with that audience. I mean, at Made Simple, that's what we're really focused on. How can we engage our audiences? Not just on social, how can we engage our audiences generally, online, digitally, offline? It's all about engaging our audiences so that, you know, we are front of mind and we're growing share of mind with our audiences. On social, one of the ways that is really challenging, and you know, and I do a lot of consulting with a range of businesses as well as training with Made Simple, is this whole engagement element. But how do we get customers? How do we get people to engage with our brand, with our product, and how do we get them to give us their ideas, their views, their pictures, their photo, whatever it is that you want, this user-generated content. And it's not a simple task, you know, to get people to stop what they're doing, take a photograph and go to their Facebook and post it. So what you've got to make sure that you're doing in those areas where you are thinking about getting users involved in generating content is to think creatively, but also to keep it really simple. Here are a couple of examples of user-generated content, which, you know, we've probably all heard about this year, to hugely successful and hugely revenue driving for the charities that were involved. Product processes, the Ice Bucket Challenge, and indeed the No Makeup Selfie. And this was all about, these were pure user-generated content campaigns. You know, there was nobody at the front end saying, oh, this is the product, this is the brand, we want you to do this. And these were not broadcast campaigns. These were user-generated campaigns where all the content within these campaigns was generated by audiences. The audiences that were then sharing, they had a wonderful vibrance to them, because each one, you were incentivized. If you did your Ice Bucket Challenge, I now nominate 5 other people or 3 other people to do their Ice Bucket Challenge. So again, you might look at these campaigns and say, well, we could never create that. You know, we're not a huge charity that can get this going. We're not huge celebrities. But if you, I mean, whilst we've got the hashtag No Makeup Selfies there, probably loaded with, you know, they are kind of celebs. The amount of people that got engaged with this campaign were millions. You know, it raised millions of pounds, and there were millions of people that got engaged. So one of the things you, again, can be thinking about is, so what was the process here? The process was to get the users engaged with a piece of content, that they actually had to share their piece of content. There was a viral element to it, because once they did that, they then had to nominate other people to do the same thing. So it was generating more user-generated content, and there was a reason for doing it. You know, this compelling reason was that people were actually largely contributing to a charitable activity and therefore giving something back. So again, whilst you might look at these activities and think, well, that's not me, you can listen to and learn from what they did and think about, well, what could we be doing as part of our campaigns? You know, if we want user-generated content, why are they going to give it to us? What elements can we add in that create a viral tendency? And indeed, what's the reason? You know, what is the compelling reason? Why are they doing this? What's the incentive, really? So here the incentive was charitable, you know, giving, but that incentive could be to win something, to get a membership for something. It could be a prize, it could be anything, you know, but you've got to think through what the process was and why these things were successful. So now I want to talk a little bit about what we did here at Made Simple, because we had an absolute need. Made Simple recently rebranded in September 2014, and as part of that rebrand program, of course, any rebrand, for anybody who's ever gone through a rebrand, is not just about creating a nice new look and feel. It's very much about focusing on what the business is doing, who the business is, where that business is going. So you do a lot of soul searching as part of a rebrand program. So that the identity really is kind of the tip of the iceberg. It's everything else that's gone underneath it that is the really, important and strategic thinking element. So we had gone through the rebrand program, which was ready to launch. The tip of the iceberg piece was going live in September. And often, what you want to do as part of a rebrand campaign is not necessarily gee up a whole load of excitement and buzz about, oh, look at us, don't we look great? It was really, we wanted to get the sentiment across of the messaging behind the rebrand. And a key component of everything that we were doing at Made Simple Group was to get closer to our customers, to really understand our customers. And these were huge parts of the brand values that were forming the new brand. Putting ourselves in our customers' shoes was critical. So putting ourselves in a customer's shoes, we thought, okay, so we're doing a lot of things around this. We're going to be creating content. We're going to be moving offices so that we can get our customers into our offices more often. We're going to be getting closer and putting participation programs together internally, so all of our team actually learn about what's going on in our customers' lives and what their frustrations are with when they're starting out on their business journey. So we had a number of programs that were happening offline and online, but we wanted to get our customers involved. And we wanted to get our customers involved because really this was the truest picture of this is what our brand is all about. So what we did as part of social was we said, okay, let's ask our customers to send in pictures of their shoes, because then we really have our customers' shoes. And we'll give them a small prize, a small incentive, a chance to win £100 to spend on a pair of new shoes. So the stats that we received, and we've done a whole case study on the rebrand creative campaign, because whilst we received over 100 pictures of shoes and we got a huge amount of customer engagement. I mean, the stats, we reached hundreds of thousands of people's accounts, and we got some really wonderful level of conversation and people saying we love what you're doing and engagement, and so there was a huge amount of engagement, and indeed it did result in over 100 tangible assets being given to us as well. So here you can see we created a hashtag for the campaign, hashtag #ShoeSnap. And here you can see just a sample of some of the shoes that were sent in to us. And you can see over here a quick message, good job, you've got proper running shoes, Roy. As marathon runners with bad footwear suffer with agony of defeat, hashtag #ShoeSnap. And, but we just had great conversations, lots of interaction. People did get engaged. And this was largely because we kept the user-generated content concept really quite simple. Send us a photograph of your shoes. You can email to us, you can tweet it, you can put it on our Facebook page. We made it easy for people to send us their shoes. So, and we put a very clear hashtag for the campaign. The other thing, of course, we did was we made the T's and C's really clear. And I mean, if any of you want some kind of standard T's and C's, that's something we can share with you. But our T's and C's included, things such as the rules and guidelines of what was actually needed. And that's really what your T's and C's have to include. So, 1 entry per person. The campaign was intended, and of course 1 entry per person meant that, they might have sent us 1 pair of shoes, but we had maybe 20 conversations with some of them. And that was the difference between our engagement levels and the tangible assets that we actually received. The campaign is intended for the customers of Made Simple, the employees of Made Simple, and the partners of Made Simple. All images will be posted on Made Simple Group's social networks. And then we had other things like, the typical T's and C's, which were around the prize. The prize is this, there are no cash prize alternatives, and all your usual T's and C's. And if you want to see a full outline of the T's and C's, just drop us a line at Get Trained UK, tweet us, and we can happily send to you some standard T's and C's that you can use and share for your campaigns. The other thing that you really need to think about is, I'm just going to go back here to clear instructions, because clear instructions of what participants need to do. Very often, you know, and I look at creative campaigns and some of them are way too complicated. And I just think it's kind of like, you know, when you look at a website homepage, you've got 3 or 4 seconds to capture what does this website do, you know, and get that message across very quickly. Well, the similar thing with any campaign where you want people to do something, particularly if it's a social campaign, it's really got to be clear as to what they need to do. So here you can see some of our creative activity around we created. So you can see we are rebranding and we want your shoes. Really simple. Hashtag ShoeSnap leading the campaign. And you'll see a lot of billboard campaigns where, you know, all they've got is the hashtag, and indeed that is it. You know, I know through the Olympics, Nike were running a campaign, an engagement campaign, hashtag make it count. And that was all you saw, those words and the Nike tick, and you had to go to Twitter to find out what is this all about, or Facebook. So, you know, think about the hashtag, think about how you're going to connect people and get people back. Make sure there is clarity as to what it is you want them to do. Get out your phone camera, take a picture of your shoes, post the picture on our Facebook wall or tweet it to @MadeSimple Group. Remember to use the hashtag. That is it. The simplicity of the whole campaign is there in just 3 bullet points and a hashtag. So make sure that you keep your instructions clear and simple. A hashtag is important. If you're going to use a hashtag, make sure that you check current activity on the hashtag. In fact, our ShoeSnap hashtag had been used before, but when we looked at the context in which it had been used, it was actually very relevant to what we were using it for. It was about people taking pictures of their shoes, not necessarily for a competition, but for to showcase, you know, who had the particular groovier shoes of that campaign. So we thought, okay, well, we're not going to not use a nice, snappy, simple campaign because it's something to do with what we're talking about. It's not about broken shoes or anything negative. It's fine. So check the current activity on the hashtag just to make sure that if you are going to use it for a campaign, that it's not being used in a way that could be derogatory or negative to the campaign that you're looking to use it to. So there's no confusion there. Keep it simple, don't make it too long. You know, no hashtags should be too long. And so if it's for a campaign and you're going to be using it on other printed materials or digital materials to promote the campaign elsewhere, then you definitely want it to be simple and short and memorable, ideally. You know, keep it relevant, keep it memorable. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a new hashtag. If you see the hashtag has been used before, but it's used in a relevant way, then you might make the call to say, well, I'm actually comfortable with still using this for our hashtag. The one thing there I would say is make sure when you're measuring your metrics that you're only measuring the timeline from when your hashtag went live, because otherwise you might pick up stuff from the hashtag that went before that it doesn't give you then a true picture of your activity. So keeping it simple, as I said, really important. Clear instructions, a simple thing for people to do. And, you know, I suppose coming, you know, to the last but not least, the importance of end-to-end communications in your social media campaign. We didn't just put out a competition on a Facebook page. You know, we put all of our header images on our Twitter page, our Facebook page, our Google Plus page, our blog pages. We did what we call a social takeover, where we use that campaign imagery across all touch points. So on all of our digital touch points, we promoted it. We put a communication out in our newsletter to our customers, so we were using it there. And again, we led with that communication and the branding of that campaign. We did some flyers that we had in our reception area, so that when people were coming into our building, they could see this and say, oh yeah, Will can take a picture of my shoes, that's no problem. At the time, we were putting a lot of case studies together, so when we went out to meet some of our startup story case studies, we actually took our cameras and we said, once we'd interviewed them for the case studies, we said, do you mind if we take a picture of your shoes, because we want to include you in this campaign, and incorporated that into to the campaign. So you can see that, you know, it wasn't just a social campaign. We were actually utilizing the creative from that campaign and driving people offline and out of our social channels in other channels to the social campaign, which is a really important part of promoting any campaign, looking at how you can switch and help get each channel to help the other channel to communicate more effectively. So think about integrated marketing when it comes to running your social media campaigns. Don't just purely rely on putting, you know, some posts together in Facebook. Make sure it is end-to-end, joined up across all of your social campaigns, and where relevant across your other digital marketing campaigns, and indeed where relevant your offline marketing campaigns to drive people to your social campaigns. So really important things that you need to think about that are absolutely necessary when planning any campaign, but more so when it's a social competition or a social engagement campaign or creative campaign. The planning. The planning, like everything, really do the planning. You can come up with the idea and, you know, very often you think, oh, that's great. And because sometimes things are really easy to implement on social, you know, let's get that on Facebook now and run a competition from the Facebook page. You know, we've got webinars about running competitions on the Facebook page that you can tune into. But, you know, the planning, you need to think things through. What content are you going to create? How are you going to engage people? How are you going to keep it simple? You know, overcoming all of those user-generated content elements that we talked about. What are the T's and C's? Do we need to get sign-off from anybody? You know, we recently partnered with Movember and we ran another creative campaign asking all of our customers to cut out moustaches that we'd given to them and send us a picture with these moustaches, or indeed it could be their own moustaches. But in order to do that campaign, we had to get sign off from the people at Movember. We couldn't just dive in and do it. We actually had to go to them and say, this is what we're planning on doing. Now, the planning cycles for something like that are months in advance. So you might just be thinking, oh, well, let's do that in October, ready for November. You really have to consider any partnerships or any dependencies that you might have where you need to really do the due diligence or hook up with their T's and C's in order for you to deliver that creative campaign. So the planning covers all of the stuff that we've talked about in this webinar today about the users, the competition, the what, the simplicity, the how, any partnerships, any things you need to consider, what the prize is going to be, the research, looking at, you know, what's done well before and how you can borrow some of those ideas. Get the planning right. You know, don't just dive in and think, oh, this sounds exciting. Really do the planning so that, you know, that will give your campaign more opportunity to be successful. The launch of the campaign, like I say, make sure you've got all your eggs in the basket. Don't launch without thinking, oh, but hang on a minute, we haven't changed our Twitter header page, or we haven't put anything on our Facebook page, or hang on a minute, why didn't we put it in our newsletter? Oh, damn, we've just missed that date. You know, that comes back to planning, but it also comes back to how you're going to launch it. Make sure everybody knows about the launch. Make sure your internal team know about the launch. Make sure you're geared up and ready to actually receive any extra traction. Because when you launch this campaign and this content starts coming into you and the engagement starts, you really can't leave people hanging around on social. You know, you want to be going back to them saying, yeah, thanks, great, wow. And that all is part of keeping up the momentum. You know, you really have to be on it and watching what is going on to keep that momentum going. Going back and saying, right, they look great, fantastic, pass this on. You know, if there is a viral aspect to your campaign, you know, who else are you going to share this with? You want to keep that momentum going and keep that conversation going. The finish at the end of the campaign, you want to have clarity of when that campaign is going to finish. So if there is a deadline, you might want to be keeping up the momentum of, you know, only 5 days to go, only 4 days to go, only 3 days to go, you know, doing some kind of countdown to the finish. And then, of course, the clarity of what happens at the finish. Not only the date and time of when, you know, the offer closes or the competition closes, whatever that incentive is, but also what's going to happen. For example, we will announce the winner on such a date, and we will put those winners' details onto all of our social networks. I mean, the winner is actually, and depending on your creative campaign, is actually a whole new piece of content for you to share, because you go back to that winner. And in the case of our campaign, we went back to our winner and we said, great, you know, send us the new shoes that you buy with your £100, and we want to see you in your new shoes, so that we can go back and keep this conversation going, this campaign going about the shoe snap, so that everybody can publicly see what is going on. So think about all of those: the finish, the announcing the winner, and of course, the analysis that you get and the recycling of the content. From that campaign, we've created case studies, we've created blogs, we've created newsletter assets. We've actually put a PR piece together that we were asked to put together because people picked up of what we were doing on social and said, oh, we really like this. We're pushing it to try and get some more PR about, you know, an interesting way to engage customers around a rebrand when customers are rebranding. So you can keep repurposing and recycling the content and the analysis that you get out of the actual creative campaign that you do. So again, the planning, this all comes back to the planning, setting out and starting off with the end in mind. What is it that you are looking to achieve? And then thinking creatively about all the components and how you can capitalize on all of those components throughout the whole campaign. Here you can see our shoe snaps. Now, remember when I was telling you about our rebrand and the values that were important to us, one of the values and the whole reason we ran the shoe snap campaign was about getting ourselves and putting ourselves in our customers' shoes. You can see here, this is a wall, and this is a post on our Facebook page, but you can see that actually the picture is of the wall in our reception. So when people come into our reception, they actually see this wall of photographs full of shoes. And the first question they tend to ask to our reception team is, you know, what's going on with the shoes on the wall? Is that the team's shoes? Whose shoes are these? And that gives them this wonderful opportunity to say, yeah, well, a couple of the shoes are the team's, but these are our customers' shoes, and this is all about our rebrand, and they can tell that story. They can go into the detail. So here you can see that, you know, the recycling of that content and the way we're using this content in a very offline way is, again, keeping the conversation going. So think about your campaigns and the recycling of the content and the content that you get from those users and how you can be using it. There was a, you know, there was a recent campaign I was looking at where people were asking people to help them design their Christmas cards. And then, of course, the Christmas card is the Christmas card. It was a school that were doing it with the children, but they were running it on their Facebook page. And the children created designs, put the designs onto their Facebook page, and of course the winning design would then be the school's formal Christmas card. So this is using online user-generated content to actually create something that is going to be tangibly printed and sent out to all of the people that they send their Christmas cards to. So again, it's about recycling, thinking about how you will be using that content to keep the conversation going. Fundamental is indeed the tracking and the metrics. So you want to know the reach of your campaign. You want to understand what happens with your social campaign so that you can learn from that, and then going forward you can continuously improve. So some of the things we measured, and they might be useful for you, and of course you can go beyond these metrics, but some basic metrics: the hashtag reach. And the report we used a few things, but one of the reports we used for the hashtag reach is tweetreach.com. So if you go to tweetreach.com, you can put in a hashtag, you can put in keywords, you can put in all sorts of things, at handles, and it will give you a report. And we paid for our reports. You can get free reports, but there are paid for the reports that give you a bit more sophisticated insight, and here you can see TweetReach. You can see that the report will give you an estimated reach of how many accounts that it was reached, how many impressions you got, who was tweeting, how many contributors over different periods of time. You can see that this is just an 8-day time slot that we're looking at. And then it also gives you all the Twitter accounts and the actual tweets of the people that were engaging. So this is quite useful because you can then follow all of these people. You can go back to them and say, even if you didn't win, thanks for getting involved in the campaign. You know, your shoes made a difference. And if you come into our office, even though you didn't win, your shoes may be at some point on our wall because we're going to keep rotating the shoes. We've got all this content. We're going to keep changing them. So you can see that tweetreach.com gives you quite a lot of activity to track. The number of entries is, of course, a very simple thing to track. How many people did we actually get to engage? And of course, you can look at your Google Analytics to see the different levels of traffic that you're getting to the site. And hopefully, you know, if you're running an activity, what we saw was a number of spikes across the activity as we pushed the campaign further and further. So we were definitely driving more traffic and awareness to our sites. The conclusion to all of this is, you know, by all means, do your research, look at what others are doing, and think about how you can be creative with your product, service, brand, whatever it is that you want to, you know, with your social activity. What else could you be doing? How could you be driving engagement? And learn from what others are doing. Look at other campaigns and don't just think, oh, we could never do that. Look at what they did, because pretty much, you know, there are simple components in there, like the viral, like getting other people involved, giving them, making it easy to engage, and indeed, you know, giving them a reason to engage. So get creative, but keep it simple. That's absolutely fundamental. Think about the user-generated content that you want to achieve, but think about that right at the beginning of the planning of the campaign. It's really important that you do the planning. Track and measure as you go, and of course think about the tools that you're going to need to get to that conclusion. You're running a campaign, you want to see how it's worked. You know, what did it drive? What was the bottom line? Did we achieve what we were looking to achieve through this campaign? So plan beforehand, think about the end-to-end and the integrated. If you're going to be actively plugging your social campaign into other offline or other digital marketing activities, plan for that. You know, make sure it is all integrated all the way through. We've got lots of planning tools and marketing plans and campaign plans and very simple things that we cover on all of our training courses. So I'm sure if any of you really want to get any of those plans, social media plans or planning campaign plans, we can send resources to you. Again, if you just at Get Trained UK, we can let you have insights to those. And of course, you know, don't forget about the winner, and don't forget about thinking how you can capitalize on that and turn that into content and keep that conversation going as we've discussed. So questions, hopefully that's been quite useful about thinking about how you can be using creative campaigns as part of your social engagement activity. I hope our insight as to what we did and what we continue to do with our social engagement campaigns is inspirational. Ours, the one I shared with you there, had a very specific purpose. It was really about how do we introduce our rebrand to our customers without alienating them, and indeed getting them involved with the process so that they're more likely to be engaged with our whole rebrand. You know, and it's been interesting that our rebrand program, we've had nothing but positive engagement. So nothing but positive engagement about our rebrand. So if now we're going to hop back to Sarah and I to answer questions, and indeed, any questions, Sarah? Have we got some here?
So I've got a few here. So, one from Janet. How do you deal with a campaign flopping? Everyone's worst nightmare.
It is, it is. And I suppose, again, you want to plan this into your contingency. You know, when we were planning the campaign, we just said, what if nobody gives us the shoes? And so we said, okay, well, if that happens, if we really don't get any shoes, we will reach out to our friends, we will reach out to our team, predominantly in-house, and we will get our team involved, and indeed our partners involved, and our friends involved if we really need to. So I suppose you know, that was something that we thought about. What if nobody gets involved? So you have to think about the contingency. If you might also want to give a time limit to the campaign, and if you might want to test it and think, okay, excuse me, joking, you might want to think about, well, I'm only going to run that campaign for a week and I'm going to see what happens. And if it's going really well, I'm going to extend it. So it's very difficult to run a campaign and say it's going to run for 28 days and then make it only last for 5 days, because, you know, it's very difficult. People are going to think, oh, they didn't get any traction. That's why they're reducing it. Whereby if you say, we're running this competition for 7 days and you get lots of engagement, you can actually then think, actually, we've had so much content and so much engagement, we want to run it a little bit longer so that other people can get involved. Then that's quite a kind of clever way of going live with a campaign, but safeguarding the fact that, you know, you're not overestimating or trying to run the campaign for too long, so it's going to look ridiculous if you don't get any engagement. So contingency planning, who can we turn to if this isn't working, and indeed the test element, you know, breaking up the timings of when you run the campaign and the length of the campaign, so that you start off small and you've always got the opportunity to grow it. Okay. Just a couple of the things that you can think about.
I think putting a short time limit on it as well is more likely people are going to get involved, because
yes,
they've only got a certain amount of time to
yeah.
do so. Yeah,
that sense of urgency can often mean that, you know, if you give somebody a 4 weeks to get involved, they might think, okay, I'll do it at the end of the month. Whereas if you say, you need to do something by, you know, next week, you'll start to see a little bit more of urgent activity.
Okay, hope that helps, Janet. So Sharon, what steps off social media would you recommend in promoting a campaign?
Well, off social media, I mean, if you're running newsletters, if you are doing digital newsletters or even physical newsletters, it's definitely worth headlining in your newsletter to your audience, email marketing or however they're delivered, and promoting the fact that this is a campaign that you can get involved with. If you're a cafe or a shop or whatever, stick a poster up, you know, or if it's a till, you know, if you're a shop and you're selling things, put things on the till receipts or give people a little flyer at point of sale, just to grow awareness. I went into a music shop the other week, and they gave me a flyer when I purchased, you know, some guitar strings, and this was a competition to go online and to actually record myself. Yeah, it was quite complex. I didn't do it. So this goes back to the fact of, you know, keep the competition simple. If I wanted to record myself, they were talking about, you know, the best guitar riffs. Now, you know, that would be great for my husband, who's a very experienced guitarist. But for me, I'd be hugely embarrassed to share whatever. But it was to win a very nice guitar. So, you know, if you really are a good guitarist, then that was a relevant competition. But it wasn't simple for me to engage with because it was quite niche. But they gave me a point of sale flyer. So point of sale, posters, newsletters, talking to people, telling people, sharing it, you know, just general conversations or networking groups that you go to, just generally getting the word out in any other way. So any other marketing activities that you do, think about how can I be promoting this social campaign that's going on social.
And a dedicated mailer works quite well for us, don't you? That's a whole mailer dedicated to that one.
Absolutely,
campaign.
Yeah. So for us, we put it in for us when we were promoting, and when we are promoting any of our creative campaigns, we'll headline it in our newsletter, but we'll also run a dedicated communication to our audience, you know, to the people that are opted in as part of our email communications. You know, and some people might be sending text messages. I mean, I got a text message this morning from EE to engage on a social campaign that they're running. So all different mechanisms.
Okay, great. And one final one from Paul. Is going viral a realistic expectation for a small business?
No, probably not. You know, not a realistic expectation. So it's not really about, it depends how you typify going viral. I mean, if I I think if we think about going viral like the Fenton dog, you know, or anything like that, then, you know, that's crazy viral. But having a viral campaign, which means, you know, there is opportunity within a campaign for the reason you get engaged with a campaign is because you have to tag 5 other people or 3 other people. That in itself is referred to as a viral campaign, because you're having to share it onto other people for them to do something, for you to actually make the application. So for example, I saw a campaign last week by a hotel that was, you could win a weekend in their hotel, but you had to tag 6 friends that you would take to that hotel for that weekend away. So of course, when I tagged those 6 friends in that competition, then they were notified, they would have been notified or tagged in some way. I know there are strict, funny competition rules about how you tag other people in competitions, but this application, that's what you did. And so of course, for me to be engaged in that competition meant I was getting other people engaged. So that is a viral campaign. Now, if I just tell 6 people, that's telling 6 other people. It means that we're expanding the reach. So I think that aspect is realistic. You know, getting hundreds of thousands or millions of people engaged is that's not realistic for a large brand or a small business. It's just one of those things that sometimes happens.
Okay, lovely. That's it, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Hope you enjoyed that session.
Thank you.
Just a note, do remember, if you are interested in coming on any of our digital marketing training courses, we do have an offer at the moment, and they're all £99 for limited time only. So now is the time to do it if you're thinking about it. So remember, we've got courses covering all social media strategy, search as well, so SEO, Google Analytics, Google AdWords, and they're all here in our brand new training rooms in our new office here, and you'll be able to see all our shoe snaps on the wall.
Yes, and come and see our shoe snaps. Your shoes might even be on the wall if you're one of our customers and you got engaged.
So check us out, businesstrainingmadesimple.co.uk, and have a great Christmas, everyone, because this will be our last Google Hangout of the year, and we'll see you all in the new year.
Yep.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye bye.